Old ape had always been more mountain than beast, steady, unmoved. But today, there was something behind his amber eyes, regret, or perhaps fear. You saw them, Marta said, though it was not a question. Rue nodded. Marta looked up toward the peaks beyond the mist. There, the jungle grew wild in ways even the apes avoided. It was a place of silence even the birds dared not sing into. That part of the jungle, Marta rumbled, remembers more than it should. They left before the others stirred. Rava watched them go from the shadows, but said nothing. Naya followed, silent and tense, her muscles coiled beneath her dappled coat. For hours they traveled through low-hanging vines and along trails, where roots twisted like veins through the earth. The trees grew older here, their trunks wider, their bark covered in glyphs not carved by claws or time, but by hands, by humans, by his kind. Eventually, they reached a clearing that seemed torn from a different world. Stone pillars jutted from the ground like broken teeth, cracked and half swallowed by vines. A staircase led down into shadow, its steps lined with moss and bones too ancient to name. The ruins, Marta said, his voice a low echo. Before jungle, before fire, before forgetting. Rue stepped forward, breath caught between awe and unease. His fingers brushed a slab of stone carved with symbols, not the language of the apes, but something geometric, linear, deliberate, human. Writing, they descended into the hollow earth. Inside the ruin, roots grew through stone like veins. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing like slow drums. Strange drawings sprawled across the walls. Humans beside animals, not hunting them, but standing with them. Lions, elephants, apes, serpents, birds, all side by side with figures bearing torches. And in the center, a single image burned into Rue's eyes. A child held by an ape, raised among beasts, a sun above his head. Rue stepped back, his pulse thundered in his ears. Not just wonder, recognition. The image was not him, it was older, centuries old, but it was him, his story, his life, repeated. Had this happened before? Marta placed a hand on Rue's shoulder. We have always known. You are not ours, he said softly, but you are of the jungle, more than the others were. What others? Rue asked. Marta hesitated. A rare thing. There were others who came from the skyboats, from the rivers. They built, they burned, they ruled, and then they vanished. Nia growled low, her ears flattened. They were no longer alone. From the jungle above came the crack of branches, voices human. Rue turned to Marta. Go, the ape said. Now, take the cub, return to the cliffs. What about you? Rue asked. Marta turned, eyes fierce and ancient. I will buy you time as I did once before. Rue opened his mouth to protest, but Marta had already stepped into the shadowed archway behind them. Nia snarled, nipping Rue's ankle. Urging him, they ran. As they climbed from the ruins and slipped into the thick cover of trees, Rue looked back once and saw nothing but vines covering stone. The jungle had already begun to hide the truth again by the time they returned to the cliffs. The apes were uneasy. The smoke in the distance was now closer. The sky, once blue, hung heavy with haze. Rue didn't speak that night, but his eyes told a story the tribe had never seen in him before. Not a boy, not an ape, but something, becoming more than both. Something jungle-born. Act I Scene 5. Fire at the Edge. Cinematic prose. Scene duration. 10 to 12 minutes. The jungle was coughing. Not loudly. Not in rage, but in a slow, crackling breath of smoke and heat. Trees at the farthest edge stood scorched and silent. Leaves fell like ash. Birds no longer sang there. Even the insects had grown quiet. And Rue knew the humans were no longer watching from afar. They were claiming he stood at the top of a stone perch, staring across the canopy. The smoke was thicker now, curling skyward from several places like the fingers of a giant hand. Down below, the jungle stirred with nervous life. Herds moved faster. Birds flew lower. Predators hunted less and watched more. There was a rumor in the trees, older than words. Something was wrong. Nia sat beside him, tail twitching. Her ears were forward, focused on every sound. Beside her, Rava fidgeted with his knuckles, glancing back toward the cliffs. They burn without reason, the young ape muttered. Kill what they don't even eat. Rue didn't respond. His jaw tightened. He had seen them. He had stood among their ruins. He had heard the way they spoke, not just with voices but with fire, metal, and machines. They were looking for something, and they were not going to ask the jungle for permission. Back at the cliffs, the elder apes met in low, tense circles. Cora snarled that it was time to leave, to retreat deeper into the highlands where no human had ever dared tread. They come with fire, she warned, and where fire walks, roots die. But Marta was still gone. His absence was a hole in their strength and in their hope. Then Rue stepped forward. It was the first time he had ever spoken before the council. They won't stop, he said, not at the edge, not in the heart. If we run, they will follow. The silence followed his words, not because they disagreed, but because they feared. He was right. They fear what they don't understand. Rue continued, but so do we. We know only their worst stories. I've seen more. There is division among them. One group burns, but another studies watches. Some seek to destroy others. He paused, searching for words. Others are still listening. Cora's eyes narrowed. And which kind are you? Rue didn't answer because he didn't know. That night, he made a choice. If the jungle was to survive, it would not be